Шановні колеги, всім доброго дня. Ми продовжуємо.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We continue our work at Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and the topic of this event is Euro reforms in energy, how Ukraine starts 2017. And this event is in the framework of a project of increase the role of civil society in the energy sphere, supported by the European Union. Our guests are Svitlana Golikova, independent expert, head of the company TransEnergoConsulting, also Nitsovych, projects and programs director, DiXi Group, Gennadiy Ryabtsev, director of special project scientific and technical center Psykhea. And via Skype we have Nataliya Andrusevych, head of the board at Resource and Analysis Center of Society and Environment, Yuliya Cheberyak, expert of civil network OPORA, and Andriy Bilous, DiXi Group analyst. Dear colleagues, I remind that we have time up to 2 hours, so please, the first is Svitlana, please. The mic is on. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you first for this invitation to all the guests and those who joined the program that is supported by a consortium of civil society organizations, experts, and DiXi Group heads this consortium, and the European community supports this work in the part of monitoring and the monitoring of implementation of obligations concerning part of the association agreement and energy sector cooperation. So we have cooperation in different sectors. We will speak not only about electricity, but about other areas. But I'm going to speak about electric energy, and maybe we all consume electric energy. And yesterday it was professional holiday of those who work in energy sphere, and we believe that sun is on our side, and we will thank sun that it contributes to the development of our new area of solar energy as the new component that should be introduced in the energy market. Also, I hope that maybe you had the opportunity to read the new energy strategy. It appeared several days ago, and this year the law on National Commission on Regulation of Energy of Ukraine was adopted, and this is a positive step in introduction and reform and implementation of obligations before EU, and also committee of the Supreme Council works on the law on energy market, and unfortunately we're not able to follow the schedule of this year because it was planned that in December this draft law will be reviewed by the committee, but now I got message that the review was postponed to start of February. So deputies, they want to relax, but some of them, they continue to work because experts really work greatly. And there are many amendments to this draft law, 1,160 about this figure. So you can imagine this. Each amendment should be discussed and then coordinated with the European energy community that are now present and are working with our experts. So all this will be in February. What are the results in this area, the development of energy sector? In my opinion, we can see some positive trends in regulation and improvement of legislation, but there are problems concerning transparency and the last decision of the regulator concerning transfer to new differentiated tariffs. I'm informing of wholesale price. this information is not provided to the public but in transparent way. And there was provision of the Cabinet of Ministers and the provision of the regulator that this is they disclose this information, but all the components, and there are 15 of them, they are not fully disclosed. And 9 were provided, and the rest they did not disclose because they said that it is not very interesting. So, positive sides. We see the work concerning connection to the networks and improvement of service for consumers. Also, there is provision of the regulator on quality of services, but there are some, and the group works, a special group of regulator that work on the issues of the schedule of implementation of law in electricity market. This is secondary legislation, and they continue their work in Ukrenergo. They also improve the structure of administration. Ukrenergo won't be unbundled, and they are transmission system operator. And they improve their own structure of governance that is really necessary concerning transparency and the transparency of formation of tariffs for transmission and dispatching. Also, energy market. When the new law is adopted, there will be a transition period of 2 years. And we hope that they would not have more, so consumers will feel the effect of this market in 3.5, maybe 4 years. So household consumer won't transfer immediately, won't use these mechanisms that are envisaged by the new market. And there is an issue on green tariffs. There are some discrepancies for how long these green tariffs should be used, and till the tariffs will be enforced. Now they communicate with Europe, and they say that we should reduce this period till 25th. Because the load is too heavy, the burden is too heavy for all the consumers. But this is a question for discussion. Technologies develop, and this year we have interesting dynamics. Household consumers, they established the systems of local solar systems on the buildings, and also combined with the wind energy, and those that are connected in 2014, there were 27 registered. In 2015, they had 224, and this year, in half a year, we have more than 600 until end of year. Forecast is 1,000. So starting 24, then up to 1,000, it's a good result. So we see the necessity to continue this monitoring and participation of civil society in all actions in the market, and this will be, we hope, for transparency and to the benefit of consumers. Thank you. The floor is given to Roman Nitsovych, please.
Good afternoon. I would like to cover the main wins, achievements, and failures at the energy market and in the energy sector, and I will tell you about our vision, what should be in focus, tracing the events of the next year. I will start with not very optimistic news, which we observed this week. This is the national budget is adopted for the next year, and the amendments to the tax code, which were adopted along with the adoption of the law on national budget. Ukraine, its government didn't declare that we will become a big oil country, petroleum country. The country said that we will produce much gas sufficiently not to import it, but unfortunately these intentions were not supported by actions. One initiative was in the parliament, it was promoted by businessmen to reduce royalties for new wells to be drilled after the 1st of January 2017. This was not supported because this would result in lower proceeds to the national budget, but the amendment was supported about 2% royalties for the wells, for the existing wells upon their so-called depleted wells, if they are introduced into operation again, then the royalties will be merely 2%. So the threat of corruption is, we can't say that it is eliminated. We should wait for official publication. This is not a very good news for the gas production industry, and then along the chain and on the supply chain, positive news is continuation of liberalization and competition growing at the natural gas market. Here we talk about the market where main consumers are industrial enterprises. Here we have price competition, many sellers, many buyers, importers. In particular, the end of November, the reports were European companies were reported to enter Ukrainian market. That this segment is understandable, forecastable. That is why they enter this marketplace. Besides that, the traders' work is now easy because the reserve stock amount has been decreased from 50% to 0, or 10% in extraordinary cases. Talking about other segments of the market, we should focus attention next year on them. On April 1st, the transition period will end for gas supply segment to individuals and district heating utilities producing heat for individuals, for households. The first unknown thing is how the plan would be implemented on creation of independent gas transportation system operator. The process is now at the phase of formal establishment of the company to which these assets would be transferred. This is Gas Transportation Networks of Ukraine, public company, joint stock company. The draft law on specifics of transfer of these assets to concession should be adopted next year, and the next step should follow it. The next unknown factor is as follows. It is very hard to agree for gas monopolies to deliver gas for subsidies, in exchange of subsidies, but not for money. Just simple settlements which are cashless. They are not interested for gas suppliers. So monetization of subsidies should be considered. No alternative supplier will not enter the marketplace due to high risks of non-monetized subsidies. There is no commercial interest to deliver gas in exchange of subsidies. The next unknown element in this equation is how the pricing will take place. The price is now set by resolution of the government, and there is market price at the competitive market. If in some the difference was rather little, but the spread now increased to 1,800 hryvnias between market prices and regulated prices. Of course, it would drop to next summer, but if the market is open and liberalized, we should make our people ready. We should prepare our people to some stable prices. When prices are flexible, when they increase and decrease, we should explain this to our consumers that they can save on such fluctuations of prices, deciding which supplier to use. So at the start of the year, we hope that the movement towards a free gas market, which would be transparent, will be continued. And now we are giving the floor to Mr. Gennadiy Ryabtsev, Director of Special Projects at Technical Center Psykhea. Do you remember how we perceive the developments at the end of 2013, start of 2014? This direction, this area has always remained our destination, where we should go. Unfortunately, the ideas which are being realized in many areas of activity, they do not prove that we really intend to reconstruct our lives according to the European standards, and the oil industry is not exception. If we analyze the obligations taken by Ukraine in the oil and petroleum products in 2015-2016, we can very surprisingly see that no priority has been met. This could be explained by different reasons, primarily by the very many tasks which were set forth. They have deadlines, not several months, not years, but 3, 5, or 7 years. So they are long-term priorities. And if we implement in Ukraine the directive on liability to create reserve stocks of oil and petroleum products by 2023, if we altogether will start to do this in December 2023. We will get this minimum reserve stocks by the New Year's Eve, but it would not be so. Our experts and energy community experts calculated that to this end Ukraine should reserve a lot of oil, a lot of petroleum products, at least 2 million tons oil equivalent. Where can we take them from? Who will store them? The State Reserve Institution offers their services, but if we look at what they have, Держreserve, the State Reserve, what they have and how much money they are allocated, then we will see that we do not have any opportunities and any resources. That is why the task is postponed for future, the task on creating reserve stocks, as well as the task on monitoring, which we are bound to complete according to our obligations under the directive, which guarantee quality and reliability of supplies of petroleum products. And technical regulations were adopted in 2015 for diesel fuel, motor car fuel, but the cabinet did not name the body responsible for market surveillance. We still do not have such a body in our country. Nobody monitors quality and reliability of supplies of motor fuels in Ukraine. Otherwise, the deadlines for this expired in 2015, as well as many other deadlines expired this year. For example, the deadlines on certification of equipment used for storage and transportation of oil and petroleum products. How these obligations could be complied with if the translation of this directive is so incorrect that they can't be certified, because the liabilities on implementation of these directives, they say that we need to certify dock cranes just to go along the around the ports, seaports and river ports of Ukraine, whether these cranes they are compatible with the requirements. Why they should be certified in compliance with the directive on CO2 emissions. This was just their own translation. It was about equipment on discharge of oil waste from tanks, and this translation contains many other mistakes. We can see the same mistakes in translations of our directives. The translators were not that good as our simultaneous interpreters. But no experts were involved in correction of the translations, because translators, they are not experts in the industry. From time to time, the energy community issues claims against Ukraine that we do not comply with our obligations. And as far as I know, that we have already 3 such reprimands. So how shall we comply with our obligations? Shall we tell them in response that this was just the mistakes in the translations? That is why we do not comply with our obligations. The need to develop many regulatory acts, in particular national standards, setting forth the methods of testing of petroleum products during the when they are allowed to enter the market. Since we do not have responsible bodies such as such as state-owned Institute of Oil and Petroleum Products, this research institution was disestablished. So, has anything been done? The Ministry of Energy and Coal Industry, they try to say that the achievements and outcomes of their policy, they, instead of settlement of problems, instead of getting solutions, they demonstrate the draft orders, the draft regulations as the outputs of their activities instead of real results, and the prepared along with foreign experts draft law, it could be not supported by the Verkhovna Rada, and the draft law on decreasing the royalty for gas production from new wells, this proves this fact. So we should focus public attention, and we will be doing this. We should focus attention on that the governmental bodies should comply with the requirements as set in the association agreement. If some requirement is not complied with, they should demand explanations and proposals what should be done in order to comply with the obligations, so that Europe and all our citizens can see that we have the image of the country compliant with its obligations. Without this, we can't change the situation. Thank you very much. And now we are giving the floor to Ms. Nataliya Andrusevych via Skype. Good afternoon.
You have 5 or 6 minutes. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear you all. Unfortunately, I do not see you, but we have opportunity to speak, and I would like to briefly outline the issues concerning environment in the context of implementation of the association agreement. And I would like to remind to those who are present today that except monitoring of the issues of energy in the association agreement, we also monitor the implementation of the environment component in the context. It envisages energy reforms, and traditionally, at the end of the year, we make some conclusions in which areas we succeeded, what we were able to do in this year. This year, we also succeeded because we implemented some actions, and for many directives, the implementation period was about 2 years, according to the association agreement, and among them were some directives concerning environment. And as of today, so no deadline was adhered to. So last year we presented monitoring of implementation of directives in the framework of energy community regulations, and we said that this is a process more than result, but the situation remains the same. And when we say about implementation of the association agreement in the area of ecology, we more speak about process than about results. Everyone who follows the news in the energy sphere and in the sphere of environment, maybe they noticed that in 2016, with the new government, the work became more active in the area of environment protection. But at the same time, recently the Minister of Ecology, Cheberyak, we see that there is a start of initiatives that do not directly relate to the agreement implementation. Reform of ecology inspectorate, climate change issues, concept concerning wastes. At the same time, this approach may be right because we envisage the base of the concept, and we believe that starting 2017, all those concepts and announced initiatives will transform into real reforms in real laws will be adopted, and we will see the implementation in practice. That the process of implementation is not only politics. Concerning legislative level here, we can say that this year only progressive reform was the adoption of law on introduction of integrated approach in the management of water basins, and it doesn't relate directly to energy sphere, but this is the first integration law in the sphere of environment protection, and in the course of the fulfillment of the obligations and the according to the association agreement. Also, we saw that national plan on reduction of wastes from large burning facilities, and also technical regulations to reduce sulfur and some fuels. And also the last issue is really acute because sulfur is an important issue that is discussed by European community, and if this will be done, it will help to resolve the issues at the international level. And also part of work carried out by the ministry and draft acts, this is not made public, and we monitor this information, and it was done by the request of the ministries. That's why we ask state bodies that this process should be transparent and open, and the work of the working groups of the ministries, their results should be presented on the official websites in order that we could monitor properly what is going on. And among the problematic issues and among those things that can be called the failure of the year, maybe these are draft laws on assessment of effect on environment, and after 2 years of readings and reviews, they on the 4th of October voted by the Supreme Council, but vetoed by the President. And we hope that next year all the parties of this process will take into account their faults and will restart the process, and we will see such important instruments in ecology policy, not only in the plans of laws, but also implemented in practice. Also concerning expectations of 2017, we would like to see more public dialogue on the initiatives that are proposed for implementation, and also we hope for directives concerning environment protection. And the ministry announced that next year these will be the priorities, and also we would like to see a renew of the plan of actions that was adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers to implement the association agreement, and also the renew of the introduction of changes of the plans of implementation of directions that we have. And Gennadiy, tell us about it, because we have some problems with interpretation of these directives, and that is why that they are not properly implemented. So we would like also to see that the reforms are properly implemented, and we hope that this train of reforms should come to some station, and we want to see real positive influence on population and positive influence on our international position. Okay, now I give the floor to Yuliya Cheberyak, please.
Thank you. Against the background of what was said by the speakers, nobody said about serious achievements in their areas, and I have nothing positive to say as well in the area of energy efficiency and energy saving. The plan of directives implementations, it has not been complied with, and it looks like the process of some work without any results. As concerns Directive 27, the law on commercial metering on energy efficiency, we know that the commercial metering in the first reading was passed, but we do not have any outcome. It is finalized now in the committee. The voting for the law on energy efficiency failed, and Alexey Ryabtsev submitted the alternative draft law, which has been registered, and it includes several provisions for which MPs do not want to vote. So the law on energy efficiency several times was returned to finalization. For several years it has been worked on, but the process has not come to any end. And the Energy Efficiency Fund, its concept has been developed for a long time, and the concept was presented at different workshops and round tables. Finally, we got the draft law, but the Ministry of Regional Development worked so non-transparently that the draft law, as developed. We received this draft only after it was disseminated among central executive authorities. At the website, we can see only the version without amendments, but this non-transparent work of a central executive body in drafting regulatory acts, it is a real threat. But to join or cooperate in this project, it is very complicated thing for civil society. The program warm loans is the one in which civil society tries to take part in for 6 months. It was suspended twice. Additional money were provided. This program is important. It is the only one program supporting energy efficiency in the housing stock. However, politicians, they use energy saving, energy efficiency and energy independence only in their declarations without making any actions in reality. We saw how the public and executive authorities struggled in the area of allocations to this program. Only 400 million were allocated in the next year budget. The situation is tragic that the program ends this year. So far, its extension has not been voted for. The draft resolution was already reconciled with all ministries and agencies. The government should pass it, but the Ministry of Regional Development again has some remarks for which we can't understand why they can't adopt this program. Yesterday we got to know that the draft resolution will be submitted to the government for consideration, but now it says that not only individuals and condominiums may use warm loans, but also ESCOs. However, 400 million will be enough only for several months. That is why the decision was made not to cover condominiums and ESCOs with this program. We hope that by the end of this year, the extension of the program will be passed, but due to the not adopted extension, we have problems on the local level because local budgets now do not include this item. So the local budgets may be adopted without funding allocation for warm loans. So this program will next year operate without local loans. So this looks as a collapse in the policy and in the government. Everyone is talking, but there are no results. The situation is like that with technical regulations. According to Directive 30, the information about energy consumption by goods 6 regulations were adopted last year. This year, 6 technical regulations were adopted, but due to some bureaucratic procedures, these regulations have not been passed by the government because they were adopted and readopted and reconciled. So in the energy efficiency and energy savings sphere and implementation of the directives, we can't say anything positive because there are no positive outcomes. The only positive thing is that the energy efficiency and energy saving matters are known by the general public. This topic is covered in mass media. This is the only positive thing this year as concerns implementations of energy saving directives. And now we are giving the floor to Andriy Bilous. I'm glad to greet each other here for the interest to our sphere and our project. I would like to talk about positive changes in September, October this year. The national regulator law was adopted. This law is important and it could be named among achievements of 2016. The law lays the foundation for creating independent financially and politically national commission regulating energy and utilities. The key qualities of the commission will be taking independent and biased decisions that would help to create competitive conditions on the energy marketplaces. And our mind this would happen, and we will monitor this process next year. And during last 3 months the decision was passed on a new formula to calculate prices for connection to electricity grids for capacities up over 160 megawatts. This provided the opportunity to switch by 10 positions in doing business index. However, there are some tasks that has not been completed. We are talking here about privatization. In 2016, it was planned to earn from privatization 217 million from selling Odessa port plant and 6 Oblenergos, which are still state-owned, 13 billions and 4 billions respectively. But neither Odessa port plant nor Oblenergos were privatized. So the state property fund will privatize them next year. The implementation of the law on national regulator will be implemented next year, and we will monitor this process and present you the results of our monitoring next year. The law on state assistance to economic operators will take effect. The task of Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine is to create the register of state assistant, which would not distort the competition on the domestic energy markets, and the mechanism will have to be created to return unlawfully provided assistance, and the criteria will have to be established for provision of state assistance to the companies. Thank you, Mr. Andriy. Thank you, colleagues. We have time for questions and answers. Dear colleagues, you are welcome.
Information Agency Union. I have two questions. First to Svitlana. Can you please assess what will be the period in what years the household consumers will get access to competitive market of energy supply, that they will be able to choose supplier, in what period it is possible? And question to Gennadiy Ryabtsev. Could you please make your forecast? Those rent for oil was reduced, whether there will be stabilization of Nafta, and maybe some also improvement in the drilling sector in Ukraine. So first, I would like to say that the concept is like this. When the law is introduced and it goes into effect, there are 2 years of transition period, and it doesn't include the household consumers. There are some procedures. They buy some equipment, they change system, balancing market is created, so we need 2 years for the process of building new market. After this 2 years, if we do it in 2 years, because there are some delays, and according to the law, 2 years will be provided, and then 1.5 years are provided in order that the companies, there will be some unbundling of distribution companies, and after this the consumer will be able to be in this competitive market. After this market will be created, and the supplier company will be separated from the supply will be there will be the unbundling of the company. So maybe it will be in 2020 or 2021. So the volume of extraction depends not on the rent, but on investment climate and taxes. I don't like the wording investment climate, and you know that the situation is changing every year, and investments in oil and gas sector how to say this correctly. This sector has a lot of inertia. In order to attract funds there, the companies should get convinced that in this part of market, nothing will change in 5, 10, or even better, 15 or 20 years. Because when we are speaking about extraction from new drills, or if to get profit, you can only do this in 5 years only after drilling. So if you will have this profit, because there is prospecting that does not 100% guarantee the return, the profit, even if there will be some debit, some gas and oil will be produced. So it's clear that this change of rate will improve the situation in this area, but not a lot, because investors, they will wait, because something can change next year. If there are no changes, if there will be guarantees that there are funds that they will bring here, that they will be in 5, 7, 10 years, will yield some results, so then there will be more output and more funds invested. So the decision was taken about the decrease of rate on oil extraction, but they didn't decrease the rate on extraction of gas. For me, it was really a surprise, because at Naftogaz and Ukrgazvodobuvanya, or the Ministry of Coal and Oil and the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, they demanded and said that they need to create in the market such conditions that would increase the volume of investment in the oil and gas extraction. And due to this, in 2020, Ukraine will be able to extract 27 or 28 billion of cubic meters. And what happened next? Nothing. And in 2020, Ukraine won't be able to extract this amount of gas. And maybe they just didn't put enough effort in order to achieve this. Please introduce yourself first. Yuri Favorsky. I have a question to Svitlana. She was represented as independent expert. So this is a complex issue. There are several packages in Europe. There are fourth, third, second. In what package we are now and in what stage? And about the figures, you said that there are some talks that 2013 or 2025. So about green tariff introduction. So about the voting on the same issue, the voting on draft law 5129, but your colleague said that this area is full of inertia, so maybe there should be changes introduced in this. So as to energy packages, I can say that they look not like packages, but like boxes in which we put a lot, what we need concerning European legislation and our own views on this. So this is not simply a package, it's like a box, and there can be a mix of everything. This is a joke, speaking seriously. Fourth energy package that was adopted by the European Commission. It should also go to the parliament in each country. There are directives. Let's not... We can aspire, and there are a lot of good things about networks that can be introduced without any package at all. What I like there, that there are many benefits for the consumer, and the consumer is the participant of the market. The consumer that can be a small producer or regulator on the market concerning their own generation, or they can use accumulated means of electric energy. And this is the key issue and the answer to the second question of yours. I personally believe in market with the distributed generation, and I believe that Ukraine does not need new construction of large electric stations that were built for big enterprises, chemical industry, Azoto. Ukraine needs not only green tariff, it needs understandable long-term policy on equipment that can be used by individual consumers. We have about 40% of rural population, and our cities do not have many skyscrapers. And big cities, there are a lot of small houses, individual construction, and maybe the prospect is not in green tariffs. But I showed you dynamics that they are connected to the network, but to make it cost efficient and warm credits should be provided, energy efficiency should be implemented. To transfer to distributed generation, people are clever enough. They can understand all these things. They can do it for their own households. But this is also an issue of big and distributed networks. We need to forecast how these networks will be developed, whether they are needed in such a volume. And you know that maybe better than I do, that we do not have statistics on the number of households that have solar panels that are not connected to the network, so we do not have such information. I can personally communicate with people whether it is 50 or 100. What is the forecast? I'm not the proponent that these people should be registered somehow, but there should be some statistics, the dynamics, to estimate whether we should develop it, whether we can make it more cost efficient. So this is the future of Ukraine. As to fourth energy package, so this is a number of proposals of the Commission, and and it is not only. It's not about all the rules, but about separate issues of goals of European Union in energy efficiency, in green energy, and in the issues of climate change and emission reductions. And the tasks are ambitious, and somehow some people call it fourth energy package, but it is not about liberalization and change of rules. It is the change of goals and means the EU will reach these goals. And as to green energy, there is review of the schemes of support of the green energy, because in many countries of the EU, it exceeded the threshold in the structure of consumption and the structure of generation, and it reached parity that in some time of the day or during the day, it competes with the traditional energy. So some preferences, some benefits are not needed. And that's why for new entities, maybe this scheme won't be used. For those installations, this rate is guaranteed by the state, and it will last with some lowering coefficient. And we believe that for Ukraine, we should understand that the part of green renewable energy in the generation is not so high. maybe we should preserve such mechanism until 2013 with the prop rate lowering. So it depends on the goals. If the goal is a lot of cheap energy from non-renewable sources, it's one goal. And if we want to have clear energy at market price, we should follow this strategy. So we should read the documents in this area, the strategy. Maybe this document is not so ambitious as in European Union. Not so ambitious, of course. Do you have other questions? And JKH Journal. What is economic sense of privatization of companies that supply energy? Maybe they will be profitable. There is nationalization of private bank, so that is not profitable, and so where is logic in this? The state as a manager is not good, and the situation with Obelenерgo, with the heat supply companies, power distribution companies, there was a report of the head of state property fund, and they said that they should resolve the issue with the debt of DiXi Group, and the rest of the issues is already solved. So we expect that in 2017 there will be privatization. My personal opinion is to give management to private sector, and the state should monitor that they adhere to the rules. This is the right approach. We can say that power distribution companies, they complain that their business of distribution is not profitable. And now everyone expects the introduction of stimulation regulation for 4 or 6 Obelenерgos, these power distribution companies. This is a regulation that will allow to have more profit in order to put this money to improve quality of networks. Because this quality of these networks are not satisfactory, and also to improve security and quality. For the majority, this business is regulated, and it is not very profitable. There are other methods with the help of which these power distribution companies get profit using their monopoly for connection, for some services, even for metering devices. They can get a lot of money for this. And this is the issue, not to regulator. The rules of game that it identifies. A regulator does not only establish the rules, it should monitor and supervise, or it can revoke licenses. Maybe in case of power distribution companies, they should maybe establish fines or some other things. As to ownership, we see that private owners are less prone to, due to their interests, they are less prone to corruption actions and can attract more effectively. They can attract resources more efficiently. I would like to add some words. This is a good issue. You know that among state power distribution companies, you know, they are all different. And I returned recently from state power distribution company, Khmelnytskyi Obelenерgo, 70% belongs to state, and I saw the situation in the field. I saw in the region that in 2.5 years there were many services built, IT system works, also new people joined the team, and I believe that this is one of the brightest examples of the development of this kind of enterprise. It all depends on people, and there are state enterprises such as Mykolaiv and in Zaporizhia. They only quarrel, and supervisory boards do not have meetings, and there are some quarrels between minority and majority stakeholders, and we should get rid of this negative burden. And we should ask, for example, if Ivanov Petrov Sidorov is working, we should deal with him and not with some supervisory board that does not take responsibility for the work, but just use shadow schemes. And the regulator fines them for this or do something else. And there are such examples when the supervisory board, they didn't meet for 10 or 12 months. So this is inefficient management. But there are some real, let's say, there are no rules without exception. It depends on people how they will be managed. And Khmelnytsk, they say that we have rural power distribution companies. We have less funds. That's why we have better situation, actually. And for example, Zaporizhia, the situation is clearly different. And speaking about Khmelnytsk power distribution company, I know about the problems that appear in the management of this company when the managers want to get something from the state power, because you see, it could be done as pilot project. It could be done, and it can be shown to everyone, and people can come there and see how we can work, even how state entity can work. And in the ministry, at the meeting of the council, they raised this issue, why such state enterprises are not supported, why the heads of the ministry, including this ministry, they said that everything should be privatized. The state can be an efficient manager, but this is an example. Help with anything you can. Just make it public in order to attract investment, including in foreign investment. Nothing is done. And this is bad, in my opinion. Dear colleagues, the last question. Sergei Krapiva, Upravdom Journal. I have a question to Yuliya. So 1 and 6, and in budget there is 1 and 4. So some money is allocated. What is the correlation between this money and the programs at the local level? Are they financed separately? Thank you for your question. Держэнергоэффективность asked for the balancing of the program. They asked a sum of money. They allocated only 800,000, and the fund was not created, and there is no legislation for the fund. So this 400 million will be provided to the program. So only 400 million for the program and 400 for the financing of the. And what is the connection between these programs? So if this is only one credit support of the state, the local programs that support condominium, they envisage that condominium takes a credit to warm or modernize multi-story, multi-flat house. They get compensation, 40% of the main part of the credit, and 60% is supported by local local projects. So this is the correlation between state and regional programs. So in some towns there are no such programs, or they are lacking financing. If we are speaking about Lutsk, it is one of the best examples in getting these funds from the state and cooperation with local program. This is the best result when there is state support and local support and the funds of the owners. Because if you count only on the state support, it is difficult for co-owners to compensate such credits. Thank you, dear colleagues. We will end press briefing. Thank you very much. Till the next time. Goodbye.